Rex, her fur matted and heavy with fatigue, gently nudges her pup, urging it to stir. The small body lies limp, unresponsive to her touch, but she does not give up. She licks the pup's face with a tenderness that speaks volumes. Her strong legs wobble beneath her as she shifts her weight, but she doesn't falter. With every exhausted step, Rex's body pleads for rest, yet her heart refuses to yield. The pup, her only hope, her future, lies before her, and she will do anything to keep it alive. She gathers the last bit of strength she has, pulling her pup close and curling around it, her warm body shielding it from the cold of the world outside. Her eyes flicker with a mixture of hope and fear, and though her body trembles, she holds fast. This isn't just a battle against time. It's a battle against her own limits, and she won't let go. Each day that passes without any change in her pup's condition breaks Rex's spirit a little more. The pup lies motionless, and no matter how many times Rex nudges it, how many times she nuzzles its small body, nothing shifts. The silence is deafening. Rex's once steadfast confidence begins to fade. She can feel it, time slipping away like sand through her paws. Her breath quickens, anxiety tightening in her chest. The pup's labored breathing is slow and shallow, barely noticeable. Rex nudges it again, with more force this time, but it's as though the world around them is pressing in, suffocating any chance for hope. Her resolve is tested with each passing moment, and she starts to question herself. Has she failed her pup? She stares down at the lifeless body, tears of frustration and helplessness clouding her vision. The weight of impending loss presses down on her like a boulder. Still, she doesn't give up. She can't. She won't. Rex's mind races. She knows that her strength is fading, her body too weak to continue, but her heart is pulled in one direction. Her pup. Her instincts scream that she must protect, but fear gnaws at the edges of her resolve. What if it's too late? What if there's nothing left to save? Fear worms its way into her thoughts like a dark cloud, threatening to take over her every action. Yet, her loyalty to her pup cannot be swayed. Every ounce of her remaining strength is poured into that tiny, helpless body. She presses her head to the pup's, a silent promise to fight as long as it takes. The pull of fear is undeniable, but love, for her pup, for the future she dreams of, burns brighter than anything else. It's this love that keeps her moving forward, step by step, despite the fear threatening to drown her. From a distance, the man watches Rex with quiet concern. He knows the kind of pain she's enduring, even though he's never known the exact circumstances. His eyes soften as he observes the mother, her every movement filled with desperation. His own past has taught him how heavy the weight of loss can be, and he feels an unexpected pull in his chest. He shifts uneasily, torn between the desire to help and his own uncertainty. He has no experience with animals, no real knowledge of what to do in this moment. But the sight of Rex, battling to keep her pup alive, stirs something deep within him. Something familiar, something he thought he'd buried long ago. For a brief moment, he wonders if his pain and hers are connected. But he does nothing yet, unsure of how to bridge the divide. Still, he stands there, rooted in place, unable to tear his gaze away. Rex's eyes meet the man's for a fleeting moment. There's no sound between them, no words, no commands. Only the raw, silent exchange of a shared understanding. The man's hesitation lingers, but something in Rex's quiet desperation pushes him forward. Slowly, carefully, he steps closer. Though his hands tremble, he reaches toward her. Rex watches with cautious curiosity, unsure whether she should trust him. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His presence alone speaks volumes. She senses no threat in him, only a gentle longing to help. When the man reaches down and places a trembling hand on the pup, Rex doesn't pull away. Instead, she nudges the pup closer to him, almost as if urging him to try. There is no promise of success, but in that moment, the bond between man and animal deepens. A silent agreement to fight together, against the odds, to save what has yet to be lost. Rex's legs ache with each labored step. The weight of her pup, limp and weak in her jaws, pulls at her every muscle. The darkening sky presses down, the cold biting through her matted fur. But Rex doesn't stop. Her paws drag through the dirt, pushing forward despite the exhaustion that threatens to overtake her. Her body is failing, but her heart, the heart of a mother, drives her onward. The pup, so small and fragile, hangs heavy in her grasp, but Rex holds on, never slowing. She can feel it. The distance is closing between her and the man's home. The scent of human life, a beacon in the night, fills the air. She struggles to stay focused, but every step feels like it might be her last. Still, she moves, her purpose clear. Her pup needs to live. She can't let it die now, not when help is so close. Her breath comes in ragged gasps, but Rex doesn't falter. With each step, she reminds herself that this is what she must do. No matter how weak she feels, her love for her pup will carry her through. She has no choice but to fight. She drags the pup closer, the cold of the night becoming sharper against her tender skin. But the thought of her pup's future, of what might come if she gives up, spurs her forward. She can't stop now, not when she's so close. Each step grows heavier. Rex stumbles, the ground beneath her unsteady, as though the earth itself is trying to pull her back. She can barely feel her paws anymore. The ache in her legs is overwhelming. Her body, worn and weak, trembles with the strain. But she pushes on, clinging to the fading hope that she's doing the right thing. The pup's body, so light in her jaws at first, now feels like an anchor, dragging her down. The once hopeful spark of determination begins to dim, buried under the crushing weight of exhaustion. She tries to shake it off, but it's no use. She feels her strength slipping away like sand between her claws. The world around her fades, and all she can focus on is the small, lifeless form she carries. She looks ahead. The man's house is close now, but her legs threaten to give way. Her breathing is shallow, her heart pounding in her chest. The ache in her muscles grows unbearable, but Rex can't stop. She can't give up. The pup is still breathing, faintly, but it's something worth fighting for. She refuses to accept that it might be too late. She won't. With a final burst of energy, Rex drags herself forward. She knows the man is close, and somehow that thought fuels her for just a moment longer. She can't fail. Not now. The man stands in the doorway, his hand frozen on the wooden frame. He watches as Rex approaches, her body trembling, her movements slow but determined. The sight of her weak, yet pushing forward for the sake of her pup, hits him harder than he expects. He wants to move, wants to help, but something keeps him rooted in place. His heart races, but it's not from the physical exertion of the moment. It's the storm of emotions inside him. His mind flashes back to his own past. The loss, the pain, the empty spaces left behind by the things he couldn't save. He remembers the times he tried only to fail, to lose again. The fear of trying, of failing yet again, makes his chest tighten. He's lost enough. He doesn't know if he has the strength to care anymore. The idea of putting himself out there, of facing another heartbreaking loss, is too much to bear. But Rex's silent plea, the unspoken bond that tugs at him, breaks through his defenses. He wants to help, but what if he can't? What if it's too late for the pup? What if he tries and fails? The man looks down at his hands. They tremble. Memories of the past flood his thoughts, threatening to drown him in doubt. He can't do this. Can he? The question lingers in the silence between them. Rex's eyes meet his, tired but full of hope. She doesn't ask for anything. She just needs him to act. And yet, the weight of his own fears holds him back. The man watches Rex from the doorway, his heart torn in two. He knows what's at stake. He knows the pain of watching something precious slip away. But even now, despite the tug of compassion in his chest, doubt rises in him like a tide he can't escape. What if he fails? What if he can't save the pup? It would be too much for him to bear. The past weighs heavily on his shoulders, and he fears that opening himself up to this new bond will only bring more heartache. Rex looks up at him, her eyes full of silent pleading. Her pup lies motionless in her mouth, and though she doesn't speak, it's clear she's asking for his help. The desperation is there, in her every movement. The air between them is thick with the tension of unspoken thoughts. And yet, there's no hesitation in Rex. She's here, asking for help, and she won't leave without it. The man swallows hard, trying to steady his breath. His heart pounds with indecision. He knows the risk, but he also knows the cost of doing nothing. His hands tremble, yet, deep down, he knows the right thing to do. The past has shaped him, yes, but it doesn't have to define him. With a deep breath, the man steps forward, crossing the threshold of the doorway. The weight of his decision settles on his chest, but he doesn't pull back. Rex's quiet trust in him is enough to push past his fear. It's time to take that step, no matter how uncertain the path ahead. The man stands frozen for a moment longer, his eyes locked on Rex. She looks up at him, her eyes full of silent pleading. Her body shakes, her strength nearly spent. But there is something in her gaze that reaches deep into him. It's a raw, unspoken need, one that calls to a place inside him he thought he had shut off long ago. Rex's desperation hangs heavy in the air. The man's hesitation stretches like a thick, suffocating fog. His chest tightens, his fingers curling at his sides. The fear of failure still clings to him, but as he watches Rex, something inside him stirs. A flicker of something long buried, something he thought he had lost. Her courage, her devotion, the weight of her struggle presses against him, and for the first time, he allows himself to feel something other than fear. He feels her pain, her heartache, her hope. The desire to help burns brighter than his doubts. He takes a shaky breath, then, without another moment's hesitation, he lowers himself to one knee, his body trembling from the decision. The distance between them narrows, not just in space but in understanding. He doesn't need to say anything. Rex already knows. She's been asking for his help without a word, and now he's ready to answer. With a slow, careful motion, he reaches out, placing his hands gently on the pup. Rex watches intently, her eyes never leaving him. In that moment, the world seems to fall silent, the weight of the decision settling between them. He's chosen to act. There is no going back now. The man's hands are steady, but his heart pounds in his chest. He lifts the small, fragile pup carefully, his movements tentative but filled with a quiet strength. Rex steps back, her eyes softening as she watches him. There's a sense of understanding between them now, something deep and unspoken, something that binds them together in the shared moment of vulnerability. As the man cradles the pup, he feels a surge of empathy wash over him. He can see it clearly now, the depth of the love Rex has for her pup. It's raw, unyielding, and it's driving her to push past her own limits. He has never witnessed such devotion, such courage. And in that moment, a flicker of understanding passes between them. The man feels it in his chest, a connection that reaches far beyond words. He recognizes the fierce love Rex has for her pup, and it touches something in him, a forgotten part of himself that he's kept hidden away. He knows now, more than ever, the true meaning of fighting for life. It's not just about survival. It's about the strength to love, to protect, to push forward even when the odds seem impossible. Rex stands nearby, her body still, but her eyes full of trust. The bond between them grows stronger with every passing second. She doesn't need him to speak, to promise anything. She just needs him to act. And he does. He holds the pup gently, his hands steady with newfound purpose. They're in this together now. Whatever comes next, they will face it side by side. The man's hands tremble as he tries to bring the pup back to life. His fingers press gently against the small chest, urging the fragile form to respond. Rex watches, her eyes wide, her body tense with anticipation. She stands close, but not too close. She knows the pup's fate is now in the man's hands. She doesn't dare to look away, afraid that if she does, something might slip away forever. The silence between them is thick with waiting. Every movement of the man's hands, every subtle shift of the pup's tiny body, feels like an eternity. The world outside seems to fade, leaving only the sound of Rex's soft breathing and the man's steady, rhythmic actions. And then it happens. Faint, shallow breath. It's barely there, just a flicker of life, but it's enough. A spark. Hope blooms like a fragile flower in the darkness. Rex's body stiffens, her eyes locking onto the pup's small, fragile form. She takes a tentative step forward, her heart racing, her breath catching in her throat. Her pup is alive. It's not much, but it's enough. She feels it in her chest, the first true sign of hope. The man freezes for a moment, his hands still resting gently on the pup's body. He feels the faint movement, the quiet breath, and a sense of relief washes over him. The uncertainty is still there, hovering, but for the first time in what feels like forever, there is hope. The pup has fought to stay alive, and so have they. They both know the journey is far from over, but in that fleeting moment, they share something unspoken. They've taken the first step, and for now, that's enough. The pup's body twitches again, this time with a bit more strength. The small, fragile limbs move ever so slightly, a faint sign that life is returning. Rex steps forward, her body trembling with a mix of relief and joy. Her eyes are locked on the pup, her tail beginning to sway ever so slightly. The man watches in awe as the pup stirs once more. His breath catches in his throat. He's seen enough loss in his life to know that miracles don't happen often. But in this moment, it feels like something extraordinary is unfolding before him. He can hardly believe it. He saved this life. Together, they've done the impossible. Rex lowers her head, her gaze softening as she watches her pup begin to move, weak but alive. The bond between them, once so fragile, now feels unbreakable. The pup's tiny movements, though weak, are enough to fill her heart with joy. She's done it. They've done it. The man slowly shifts, adjusting his grip on the pup, careful not to disrupt the fragile recovery. He feels a surge of warmth in his chest, a sense of peace he hasn't known in years. There's no more hesitation now. The bond between him, Rex, and her pup is real, solid. The pup lets out a small, weak whine, and Rex responds with a soft nudge, her tail wagging. There's life in it yet. There's hope. And together, they've achieved something they all thought was impossible. As the man watches Rex and her pup, he knows this moment will stay with him forever. A new chapter begins now, not just for the pup, but for all of them. They've come through the darkest part of the journey, and while the road ahead is uncertain, they'll face it together. The man's hands shake as he works, every movement measured but filled with urgency. His body aches, his muscles sore from exhaustion, but he doesn't stop. The pup lies motionless in his arms, and every failed attempt feels like another weight on his shoulders. Each time he breathes life into the small creature, he fears it's his last chance. His hands press against the pup's chest again, his eyes desperate, his breath shallow, sweat beads on his forehead, his fingers slipping with the strain. But he cannot give up. His mind races, searching for something, anything that might bring the pup back. He feels the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Rex watches from a distance, her gaze fixed on her pup. She's silent but not still, her tail barely moving, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity that somehow strengthens the man. The man's chest tightens as the seconds stretch into what feels like hours. He knows he's reached the limit of what he can do, but still he presses on. He can feel the connection between them, a bond that wasn't there before but has formed in this moment. It's as if Rex's determination is flowing through him. His breaths come in ragged gasps. He presses harder, trying one more time, praying for a miracle. And then, just as he's about to give in to his own doubts, he doesn't stop. His hands, though trembling, keep moving. There's no room for hesitation now. The pup doesn't stir, but he refuses to pull away. His love for the life in his hands, the unspoken bond with Rex, keeps him fighting. There's no turning back. Rex stands motionless beside the man, her body trembling from exhaustion, yet her resolve remains unbroken. Her eyes stay locked on her pup, and there's something unwavering about her presence. She doesn't speak, doesn't bark, but the quiet strength in her is enough. It's the strength of a mother willing to do anything to protect her child. Her posture is steady, her tail stiff with determination. The man glances at her, just a brief look, but it's enough. There's no judgment in her eyes, only the kind of trust that makes everything else seem insignificant. She's not asking for anything from him, but her gaze says everything. She believes in him. That's all that matters. Her own body is weary, her muscles aching from the journey, yet she doesn't move. She remains by her pup's side, her body language a silent testament to the fight she's been waging. Even in the face of despair, she holds onto that flicker of hope. Her loyalty is without question, as is her resolve to stay until the end, no matter what it takes. The man can feel it. Her strength wraps around him like a cloak, shielding him from the creeping fear of failure. He knows she's giving him the encouragement he doesn't even have to ask for. Her very presence drives him to try again, to keep fighting, even when the odds seem insurmountable. In the quiet moments between his desperate attempts, it's her silent support that pushes him forward. The man pauses, his mind clouded with exhaustion, frustration, and fear. He watches the pup, its tiny form still, its chest not rising with the breath of life. A sinking feeling settles in his stomach. But then, in the quiet, a memory flickers. It's faint, buried beneath years of pain and regret. There was a time, a long time ago, when he had learned a technique one his mentor had taught him. It was something forgotten in the chaos of his past, something that seemed unnecessary at the time. But now, in this moment, it is all he has left. His heart pounds in his chest as he recalls the steps, each one a step toward hope. With shaking hands, he positions the pup carefully in his arms. His breath comes in short, quick gasps as he begins. The technique is delicate, requiring more than just precision. It requires faith. His fingers move with a cautious determination, each motion deliberate, but uncertainty presses down on him. Can he do this? Can this forgotten memory save the life of this pup? Rex watches, her gaze unwavering, her body tense. She doesn't move, doesn't make a sound. She's waiting just as he is. The man's eyes flicker toward her, and for a brief second, the weight of the world lifts. She's still here. She's still fighting. And maybe, just maybe, he can do the same. He presses on. This is the last chance. He can't afford to fail. The man's hands remain steady, though his heart races in his chest. It feels like the world has stopped, holding its breath along with him. The pup is still no sign of life. But then, just as his hope begins to flicker out, something shifts. Faint movement, a barely perceptible rise and fall of the pup's tiny chest. It's so small, so fragile, but it's enough. A breath. It's not much, but it's something. The man holds his breath, watching closely, as if afraid to disturb the miracle that's just begun. Rex steps forward, her nose nudging her pup gently, her eyes scanning its tiny form with a kind of tenderness only a mother could express. The man doesn't move. He stays completely still, his hand resting gently on the pup's body, willing it to continue. The seconds stretch on, the tension thick in the air. His pulse races, and he knows he's on the edge of something. Is this the turning point? Or is it another fleeting sign of life that will quickly fade? Rex watches intently. She waits, her own breath barely noticeable as she observes the pup. Her patience, her hope, her quiet strength fills the space between them. The pup stirs again. A tiny sound. Another breath, deeper this time. Hope flickers again, fragile but real. The man can feel it, the beginnings of a miracle. He dares to believe. The man leans forward, his face inches from the pup. He doesn't dare move, doesn't dare blink. Time slows, each second stretching into an eternity. Rex stands quietly beside him, her eyes never leaving her pup. There is a sense of shared anticipation between them, a quiet agreement that they will wait together, no matter how long it takes. The pup is still. The breath is faint, almost imperceptible, but it's there. It's enough to keep them both hanging on, caught in the fragile moment between life and death. The tension is unbearable. The man swallows hard, his throat dry, but his eyes remain fixed on the tiny creature in his arms. Rex steps closer, her head gently nudging the pup's tiny form. Her eyes soften, filled with the kind of love that transcends words. The pup's body stirs, but it's not enough. Not yet. There's a fragility to this moment, a quiet, desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, the next breath will come. The man exhales slowly, his heart heavy with fear but pulsing with a flicker of hope. He doesn't know how long they'll wait. He doesn't know if they'll get the answer they need. But he feels it, the quiet strength from Rex, the determination to see this through no matter the cost. They hold on together. They wait. They're all healing now. Rex, her pup, and the man. Together, they've overcome the impossible. And in that shared victory, there is a new beginning. The pain of the past is slowly fading, replaced by the joy of witnessing this tiny miracle unfold before them. There is life. There is hope. There is love. And with it, the promise of what's yet to come. The pup, once limp and cold, now stirs with energy. Its tiny paws stretch, the fur fluffing with each small movement. Rex's tail wags slowly, watching with pure joy as her pup rises. Its legs still a bit shaky but growing steadier. The bond between them deepens, stronger than ever. A connection forged in the fire of survival. Rex nuzzles her pup, urging it on, her eyes full of pride and relief. The pup blinks and looks around, its body no longer still but filled with a spark of life. Rex licks her pup gently, her movements tender and reassuring. She watches as it tries to stand, a little wobbly at first, but soon its steps grow more sure. Each movement is a testament to the power of life, to the strength within them both. The man, standing close by, feels a deep sense of relief as he watches the pup's revival unfold before him. The miracle is complete. The pup, once a fragile, lifeless thing, is now a small but determined survivor, and with it comes the promise of new beginnings for the three of them. The man stands there, watching Rex and her pup, a sense of awe filling him. He feels the weight of the past lifting from his shoulders. This journey, this battle for survival has changed him. He came here with fear, with scars that ran deep, both physical and emotional. But in the presence of Rex and her pup, something has shifted within him. He sees the love between them, the strength that comes from survival, and he feels his own heart begin to heal. The fear that once held him back begins to dissolve. It's replaced by a quiet understanding of what it means to fight for life, of what it means to love without question, without reservation. The man realizes that in helping Rex and her pup, he too has been healed. The walls he had built around his heart, the ones that kept him from trusting, are beginning to crumble. He takes a deep breath, his chest light for the first time in years. He feels connected to something greater than himself, something pure and unspoken. The healing has come not just for the pup, but for him too. Rex, her pup, and the man stand together, a silent understanding passing between them. Rex looks up at the man with trust in her eyes. The bond that formed between them during the struggle has transcended words. She no longer sees him as an outsider, but as part of her pack. The man has proven himself not just with his hands, but with his heart. Rex knows, and her pup knows too, that he is a part of their world now. The man, in turn, feels the warmth of their trust. It's a gift, one that goes beyond survival. The experience has shown him that trust doesn't need words. It's a language of actions, of shared struggle, and of compassion. The man's heart swells with gratitude as Rex nuzzles his hand, the pup curling up beside his feet. It's a quiet bond, one built on the most basic of instincts: survival, loyalty, and love. Together, they've crossed a threshold, and the man knows that whatever happens next, they will face it as a family, bound by something deeper than mere survival. As the sun begins to dip low, the man sits quietly, watching Rex and her pup. He reflects on the journey, how far they've come, from the moments of panic and fear to this place of peace. He was once a man lost in his own pain, but now he feels something he hasn't felt in years: hope. The pup, alive and growing stronger by the minute, symbolizes that hope, a reminder that life can prevail even in the harshest of circumstances. The man's heart swells as he watches the pup nestle close to Rex, the three of them forming a perfect circle of trust and survival. He has found something he never expected: a new family, a new purpose. The journey is far from over, but for the first time in a long while, the man feels ready for whatever comes next. The pup, Rex, and the man walk together into the evening, the sky painted with soft hues of orange and pink. Their journey is far from over, but something has changed. The bond between them is unbreakable now, a promise of the future. The challenges ahead are uncertain, but they know they will face them together. The man looks down at Rex, who glances up at him with a knowing look. The pup, still small but growing stronger every day, bounces along beside them, its tail wagging with pure joy. It's a small family, unexpected, but bound by something far stronger than chance. The man knows that, whatever lies ahead, they will face it with courage, with love, and with an unshakable trust in each other. They walk into the unknown, but for the first time, they do so with hope, ready for whatever new chapter awaits them. The future is theirs, and it's full of promise.